Ian Wright has a very distinctive way of creating portraits. He will just take pens, badges, scraps of paper, and from that he creates these most compelling works. It can be David Bowie, it can be John Lennon, it can be Grandmaster Flash, but the end result is dazzling work. And I've been on many an artist tour, but this is the most fun I've had on an artist tour, and most inspiring. I present to you Ian Wright. Okay, I'm going to start an interview. Okay. This is Henry Chamberlain, and I'm speaking with a really, really fabulous artist, Ian Wright, and I'm focusing here on this portrait. And I was just talking to you, Ian, about it, and did you want to maybe try to recreate a little bit of what we were just saying?
Sure, yes. Well, it's a portrait of a wrestler, English wrestler called Giant Haystacks, who would have been around in the 70s. And I was just pointing out, you asked me who he was, and then I pointed out to you that there's a picture over here where I've got him on my bathroom door, and that's what I based the portrait on. But I was trying to find a way excuse me, I was trying to find a way of making a different line.
Yes.
And so I was using painted raffia, and I made it on canvas, so he's obviously wrestling on canvas, and I just wanted to give a different feel. I wanted to break away from what I normally do. You know, I sometimes feel hemmed in by my line, the way I draw, so I'm trying to break it down and get more, I mean with this I suppose a more tactile kind of thing that got a bit looser because the raffia was not as controlling as you'd necessarily want it to be, which is, you know, what I was aiming for, really.
I'm going to, since this is such an unusual interview for me because you're so visual and so accessible, we're kind of like going to do it in parts. So I'm going to stop here for a second.
There's
Agnes Moorehead, everyone's favorite from Bewitched.
Yeah, as in Dora. And then she's on top of this. I've ruined it as well in a way, but she's, I believe this is Tretyakov, and it's Green Lady, Chinese lady found in a junk shop.
That's a wonderful place to find things, of course.
Yeah.
And there's Beethoven made out of pins.
Yeah. So this was, I was thinking about the anniversary of the film A Clockwork Orange.
Uh-huh.
And A Clockwork Orange was very, it sort of made quite a strong impact on me. And I think is it the 50th anniversary or something this year?
It might be.
It might be. And I tried to draw Malcolm McDowell because he was I think he was my generation's kind of Robert De Niro.
Uh-huh.
I saw a film called If when I was 15.
Yeah.
About a public school. And then I went to a grammar school. My school wasn't like that at all, but it had connections to that. And I kind of really identified with it. And he made a trilogy of films, If, and then Oh Lucky Man, and then A Clockwork Orange. So If, A Clockwork Orange, and then Oh Lucky Man. And I think with Clockwork Orange, the visual part of it, the way he was in it, the moral of it, the book, the Anthony Burgess story. So I wanted to celebrate that somehow. But he had a portrait of Beethoven in his bedroom, and I realized, that's basically, this image is based on that.
Oh wow, that really adds to it so much.
Because he was obsessed by Beethoven, isn't he? He's Ludwig van.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then they use that music against him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really not into. I'm a huge music fan, but classical music never really connected with me. And,
unless you have something that pulls you in.
But that initial the opening theme tune as well is amazing. Wendy Carlos. Yeah, I think it was used by David Bowie before he came on. Anyway. So
Okay.
yeah, that's my foray into some more, rather than my shallow pop culture area. This is more the stuff with, the stuff of, I don't know. But I did get a question right on the University Challenge about Beethoven the other week, which I surprised myself actually, about hearing some music and realising it was Beethoven.
I'll stop there for just a moment. So, I just want to begin by saying this is Ian Wright, and he's an artist who has been active for last 40-some years, and he has done amazing, groundbreaking analog work that is still relevant and maybe more relevant today in digital. And this is like maybe too much of a question, but do you see, how would you present yourself to a young person who's just starting out, and you don't have to sell them really. Would you just show them the work and let the work speak for itself, or how would you go about it?
I imagine that's the best way to introduce my work to someone. I mean, I haven't really thought about that, but I suppose I'm essentially a fan of a lot of music and pop culture, and my work is fueled by that, but also I'm not particularly interested in making work. I used to share studios with designers, which was really good for me. I liked being, I didn't feel connected to the illustration world at all, but I wanted to make imagery, so sharing with designers was a good thing. And even when they got into computing, I kind of probably was more resolute in working with my hands. But digital meant I could, or maybe in the more recent years, in digital has meant that I can make more tactile things and photograph them quite easily, cheaply. So I can discover a different way of working. Whereas essentially, probably I originated starting really my work that was first seen commercially, and I was always interested in working commercially, was in the New Musical Express, the NME. And I used to do a weekly portrait for that, and maybe it was a couple of years, took me about 2-3 years after leaving college. Yeah, I studied graphic design, so I didn't study illustration, and I became an assistant, you would say, but maybe you could say now as an intern in a studio called the NTA, and it was, I'd say, to explain it, I'd say it was an English version of Pushpin, and it had George Hardy, Bob Lorry, Bush Hollyhead and Malcolm Harrison, and to me this was mid-70s. They were the most forward-thinking visualizers. They were illustrator graphic designers, and that was what fueled me. That's what actually got me to go into art college. I didn't go to art college till I was 21, and that kind of, the connection with that work made me want to go and study graphic design.
Okay, let's take a little pause there.
This is some of where I started, although I left college in 78, so this is 1985, so maybe at that point it does take you quite a while to get going. I was lucky enough to be in the NTA studio for a year after I left, and then I shared studios with people, with my old college, particularly with my old college mate, Neville Brodie, and I was working for the NME at that point, and these are typical of the drawings I would do for them, and often they were in, often had a spot colour, so I'd draw in black and whites, and I'd do overlays, and it was a way of learning how to deal with newsprint. And this was maybe my college education, if you like, because I had to work, I had to do something. I mean, I was commissioned to do a weekly spot, and it was about learning how. This is Black Uhuru. It was learning how newsprint worked. This is Bunny Whaler, and I would change my. Well, I suppose at that point you would say it's your style. I didn't have a style. I didn't. This is a band called the Stray Cats. So I would play. It was about playing. This is Nick Lowe, musician Nick Lowe, and this is Test Department. So this is just a random selection. Susie and the Banshees. So I'd be playing with maybe ways of trying to. What I was trying to do was connect the image to what I felt about. Sounds grand, but I was trying to express what I felt about the person using my limited skills. And the fact it was going to be reproduced in newsprint, in cheap newsprint, and then thrown away, which I always thought was interesting anyway. So this is where I kind of honed any skill I might have by practice, and maybe I had a day and a half to do these.
And you were around what age? Did you say? What was that?
I would have been. Hang on, no, hang on. I was late 20s.
Late 20s.
Yeah. I mean, I went to college late. I went to college when I was 21. So
that's probably the best time to go.
Well, I suppose I knew that what I wanted. Well, I didn't really know what. Oh man, sorry.
I'll stop there for a moment.
You could cut that.
Yeah.
Couldn't you? But so I would play around with ways of working.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was working from photographic reference. They had an amazing library of photos by well-known photographers, as well as a lot of press shots. So there was a lot of. I had a lot of reference. And I wasn't just working from one picture. So I also, because the enemies, here's one of Grandmaster Flash. So this was, maybe that was quite, I felt I was getting somewhere, this was salt on black paper and then photographed under a PMT machine. So one of my friends had this process camera where you could take photographs of things. It was usually made for typography, but you obviously could reproduce imagery. And so this is about white lines. So the idea of making a drawing out of cocaine. So I would try to connect something to the way I was thinking, and again it was quite experimental, and I was allowed to experiment in a way. It was a space that I felt was essentially mine because it had my name on it, so I was responsible for it the way the journalists were responsible for a review. So
I don't know if this is the right question to ask. That piece has been talked about. Is that a pivotal piece? Would that help? Did it help bring you to a different level in your career, or no, or was it more just another piece among many great pieces?
Well, that's nice of you to say many great pieces. To me, that was one of the better ones because it had an idea. I think the NTA people had ideas. And they would work with their ideas gave them direction of what to do. And I felt I had no ideas. I mean, that was almost my problem. I kind of didn't really know what I was doing. And when I look back at this now, I realised my ideas were about materials and trying to connect some emotion, and believe it or not, some kind of emotion. A lot of the time I could be drawing somebody I felt quite strongly about, either in a good way or a bad way. But also I wasn't doing, I was not fighting photography, but I was trying not, I didn't need to go photographic, so I could become very graphic. So that's what was my interest, or that's what the lucky thing was about having this particular spot.
So we were talking about process. I'll give it back to you, Ian.
Okay. Well, it's funny, it connects to the stuff I was doing in the early 80s. I worked for a band called Madness in the early 80s. I did a drawing that eventually they saw, and it was used as a record cover. So they're 40 years old as a band. Yeah. And they approached me to do some graphics, and I haven't done graphics for a long time, for a current tour, and these are 3 dates that celebrate their existence at the Roundhouse in Chalk Farm in London. And this is kind of currently the way I probably do work, and this is tape and photocopying and process photocopying on this old machine, and the way things break up, I can take with my phone, I can take from my computer, I can take a still from YouTube of their first outing on Top of the Pops, and then I process it through the photocopier, and then we have. Now we're thinking of maybe doing some fluorescent postings, so just one colour, and I used a plastic screen here on the logo that I designed to break up and give some other feel to it. So really, this is trying to process with a bit of tech, but but low tech, essentially, and still quite hands-on. So this is fun, and it even interests me after all these years that this is kind of relevant. This makes sense, and it's something I can do and enjoy doing, and it goes back to the kind of the making thing that you enjoy.
Oh.
The stuff that, let me just have let's see what's, there is stuff. What is it? I don't really want to show a Rupert Murdoch picture. There's some of that. There's stuff that's going on. There's stuff that maybe. Hold on. Will my mate ever see this? I'm working on a Frank Zappa picture for my mate, which is kind of like this. That's cut up Dick Tracy, but I don't know. There's that. But then there's a D.H. Lawrence. Let's see what you think of this. So I suppose we could tie in the. Yeah, should we try that? I suppose what I could explain is that some of those paper things I'll explain to you without you filming. Or
okay.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and start again here.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a hip hop artist called T.I., and this was done for a lovely art director called Greg Burke in New York for Atlantic Records, and he wanted a paper portrait for a hip hop cover, which was quite alternative thinking, because essentially hip hop covers were about wealth, and there's a certain gloss and a sophistication kind of in photography, and he wanted me to think about making a paper portrait of some kind, and I hadn't done anything like this. So because I was in America, I kind of reacted to the gloss of it all by using recycled paper and really cheap paper from dollar stores. So it also got a lot of attention because people didn't realise it was made by hand. They thought it might, it seemed to be Photoshop. Because also you're seeing something at such a small, reduced size. So I've been playing around with things like this, still trying to find a way of maybe making things more abstract. And then I was using old books. So these are just all in progress. These pieces. See if there's some sort of contrast in here, and if there's something to make a portrait here somehow. And so really, there's one that's on the way to being finished. Let's put it out. Been up on the wall a few times. Maybe it's easier to put it on the floor. So this is ink on copies of Lady Chatterley's Lover. So this is a portrait of D.H. Lawrence. So I've kind of inked up a lot of pages, and then this is a remade drawing that's a bit like drawing over there. So it's not complete yet, but it's in progress, and it's trying to give a kind of feel of age, and maybe it even goes back to the enemy newsprint thing, that I still like the tactile quality of newsprint. And maybe I'll just pull one other thing out, a more recent thing that's coming out soon. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, okay. These things get all this work. Yeah, so this is Albert Ayler, musician Albert Ayler. And this is for a magazine called Straightener Chaser, which is a magazine, it's on its 100th issue. This will be in the 100th issue, out soon. And then I'll grab something else, show you another process picture for on the way. Let me get hold of it. Yeah, I was playing around with, this one's kind of good, but it didn't make it to the final cut. So, yeah, that was again using, that's a photocopier technique, and using and pushing around the powder.
Oh yeah.
Before it gets kind of set through the hot roller, it's all loose, and then trying to find a way of just trying to find another feel.
So you somehow get it out just in time and manipulate it with your fingers?
You stop it halfway through and pull it out. And you can take prints off it as well, which I'm kind of interested in.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing around with these default processes almost. That's kind of what interests me, and so it gives me something that I can't get through with my own hand, but I can create an accident, and I'm kind of really curious about. Well, that still excites me. something that goes a bit wrong, that gives me something I can't manage with my hands.
It kind of brings us full circle from the early work you were showing us to
Yeah.
very recent stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
I found, but in the States, when people say there's no such thing as accidents, they tend to be in the New Age movement, and they tend to be in the cults.
Right.
So you have to be careful. So I believe in nature.
That was an
That
accident.
was natural.
Nearly. This is a magazine called Pit, and it's. I used to work in the same studio as the publisher, owner, designer Holly Catford, and it was about barbecuing, and she thought I would like to do some imagery based on some goat recipes using goat. So these are what it says here, curry goat inspired kebabs, and then there's Korean style goat shoulder. So these were made with the ingredients, which goes back to the symmetrical thing I was interested in when I was at the NME, that comes from an American artist called Carl Wortham. That idea of symmetry, and also it's from the Hoople cover here called Mad Shadows. But these were done with my photographer mate Ed Park, and he finished things on Photoshop, which is beyond my capability. But so we used the ingredients to cut up and lay on a slab of marble. So it's a little independent magazine.
Yeah, the marble background adds an excellent additional layer.
Yeah, and it's more subtle than I thought it would be. I thought it would give it away a bit, but it didn't. And now it's been used as the base for a printer over there. So it all gets used.
And we're going to talk a little bit about this brilliant Bowie portrait. I was just asking you, Ian, about whether a subject, if it's such an iconic image or such an iconic person, does that get in the way, or does that help when you create something?
I think he in particular. I'm okay with Hendrix, but with Bowie, I find it difficult, and I've tried to draw him before, and this I wanted to, this is for the Atlantic magazine, and originally my idea was to take the Low cover because I really like that record, and I thought that side view and his haircut at that point, his kind of soul boy haircut, was very influential in England, so I think that's why I connected with it. But they wanted me to take the Ziggy picture as reference, but I think I was just lucky, because for me, having I'm an early Bowie fan, and all the way through, I got his old teeth, and to me this picture's a bit sadder. So it was commissioned after he died, but at the same time it was focusing on his lyrics, but it was only an editorial piece, and I think it's still hard to reproduce something like this. Sometimes it needs to be seen in the flesh so you can move around it a wee bit, because you get a different viewpoint. But essentially, if you kind of cheat and use the flash, then you've got him, haven't you've got a clue to who that is. But a lot of the time you try to draw him without that, and he's only recognisable in photographs, because that is him, because photographs don't lie. And I think a lot of famous people, they are hard to draw because we already have our own view of them. So I that's it's sometimes non-recognizable. People that are less well known are easier to draw because you can play around with them more. But we've all got a viewpoint, I think, of famous people. So even if you're commissioned, the person might have it in their head, of a particular stance, of their particular viewpoint.
Yeah.
Less famous, perhaps, they're looking for you to bring something interesting to it.
Yeah.
So the field is wider. When you're also, perhaps you also have to get you have to get permission to use. I think also in print you have to. Certainly, when I've worked for the New Yorker, they supply you with imagery that's already been allowed for you to use. For you to base your image on, rather than you trying to disguise where you got the imagery from.
Yeah. Fascinating.